Talk to them all day long.
Yeah.
That's what you have to take notes of.
Watch council meetings.
I hope
And then
she
one of
doesn't
my
ask
face.
one of those 50-part questions like last week.
It is
because-
not very good sometimes.
Well, it was just like she's trying to combine all the questions.
Oh, talk about
and
your
by the
website?
time she got to the person, it's like,
What are you going to say about your
what was that
website?
one about? So I'm going to try to make notes in case it's complicated.
Okay, you did. I
Questions.
couldn't, that's why I couldn't find it. It's like
Introductory
looking all over.
speech.
Last week, they were like, and the this and the this and the this, and I was
Yeah,
like,
the Cape
man,
one. The Cape one was kind of
which one? The Cape, oh, that was good. I could handle that. Give me a
one word.
But the, when she was trying to combine different people's
On another trip, even if you read the
on the
question
fly
down,
trying to make sense.
get ready to switch the audio
Related, but anyway,
Get the heart rate back
the way
down.
those questions
All right, good evening, everybody. Everyone was so on time and settling down. I thought I'd just kick off. Listen. Good evening. Good evening. My name is Rachel Crocker, and I am the director here at the Albany County Public Library. And it is, I say this every time, but it's true every time. It is a privilege once every 2 years to host these candidate forums with the League of Women Voters. The purpose of a public library, since public libraries were public libraries, is to connect people with information. That's what public libraries do. And we do that in a lot of ways, but this is one of those really valuable ways that we connect the voters in our community with the candidates that are running to represent them. And we're really excited that we can do that here. We are live streaming this as well, so if you have folks that couldn't join tonight, direct them to go to the library website, the library YouTube channel, and they can watch this after the fact and see what is being said. So thank you all for being here. Candidates, thank you for joining us this evening, and I'm going to hand it over to the League of Women Voters.
Good evening. Good evening. Once again, we want to thank the library for providing us this nice, newly renovated meeting room here. I am Matthew Lang, the president of the Laramie League of Women Voters. And we, the League, are a staunchly nonpartisan organization specializing in voting and elections. We are dedicated to educating and empowering voters. And as you may notice, I am a man. Men are welcome in the League, and we invite men and anyone else over the age of 18 to join us. You can learn more about us on our table in the back there. Likewise, on the table right next to it, we've invited any candidates here tonight to put any of their promotional materials. So if you want to learn more about your candidates, there should be some materials there. So now we're going to do a tradition here in our Laramie forums and invite anyone in our audience here tonight who is running for office or currently elected to office to stand up and just give us your name real quick. And let's start, since we have some new head tracking tools in here, let's start on this side of the room and then do that side of the room.
Good evening, Pete Kosar, County Commission.
Good evening. Sharon Cumby, City Council, Ward 1, Laramie Mayor.
Klaus Helski, running for Albany County Commissioner.
Mark Armstrong, Albany County Clerk.
Jim Freed, Laramie City Council, Ward 2.
Tracy Fletcher, I'm your current Albany County Treasurer, running for re-election.
Chelsea Matthews, your current Albany County Assessor, also running for re-election.
Mike Richardson, Laramie City Council, Ward 1, Vice Mayor.
I snuck in, but I'm Sally King, your current Albany County Coroner, and I'm running for re-election.
All right, we want to thank everyone who has the guts to run for public office. Let's talk a little bit about the format of the forum tonight. Our candidate panel here will have questions posed to them by our moderator, and each candidate will be given 90 seconds each to respond to a question. We have a timekeeper in the front of the room here, and she's going to help you all manage your time effectively. So we'll have a start sign, a 60 seconds left sign, a 60 seconds left sign, a 30 seconds left sign, and then the most important sign of all, the stop sign, the stop sign. And we are giving discretion to our moderator to cut you off if you take a little too long after the stop sign shows up. Let's see here. So generally, we'll give 90 seconds to a question, but we're giving discretion to our moderator. If we have some really simple questions or time constraints for the forum, she can change the amount of time on a question and let you all know in advance. Okay, so we'll begin tonight with some questions curated by the league here, and then hopefully transition quickly to the hallmark of our forum. Yep, see, someone's already got it figured out. The hallmark of our Laramie forums here, which is audience participation. So if you have a question for one of our candidates here, up here, and make sure your question is addressed to all candidates here, just stick your hand up, and a roving league member in the audience will ferry your question over here to the podium and our moderator. And just a couple tips for getting your question asked, because we're probably going to have way more questions than we have time for, right? Is number one, direct your question to all the candidates tonight, right? General questions to all the candidates. And try not to wait until the last moment in the forum to ask a question, because unless we have no questions left to ask, we probably not going to have time to get to your question if it's near the end. And most importantly, we're giving our moderator discretion to edit questions for clarity and appropriateness, and potentially pose follow-up questions to expand on an issue. Okay, a couple technical considerations for tonight to our candidates and moderator here. Please speak clearly into the microphone, and it's not just for the sake of our audience out here tonight, it's for anyone watching videos later, so we capture nice quality audio for the video recordings. And please do not record during the forum for two reasons. All forum content is the property of the League of Women Voters of Laramie and the Albany County Library, and you could potentially get yourself in trouble with the FCC here, which requires all forums to be broadcast unedited in their entirety. So, full recordings of the forum will be made available for viewing through the library website and our league website, and later Laramie Public Access Channel 191. Channel 191. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the people running for office tonight, the offices in particular. There's 9 city council members, which are elected 3 each from 3 wards on a nonpartisan ballot. They receive a stipend of $120 maximum each day for meetings they attend, with no offices or benefits. Each city council member serves 4-year terms with no term limits. Expiration years are staggered. In terms of Ward 1, which will be this table here, there's 1 expiring term, and the top 2 candidates in Ward 1 will advance to the general election and in the primary. You will vote for 2 for the 1 vacancy. The winner in the general election will join the sitting city council members Sharon Cumby and William Bowling in representing Ward 1. Okay, Ward 2. There's 1 expiring term in Ward 2. The top 2 candidates for Ward 2 in the primary election will advance to the general, and you'll vote for the 1 vacancy during the general election. Sorry, wording on this is a little weird. The winner in the general election will join the city council members Jim Freed and Melanie Vigil in representing Ward 2. Okay, finally, Ward 3, there's 2 expiring terms in Ward 3. The top 4 candidates in Ward 3 will advance to the general election from the primary election. The two winners in the general election will join sitting City Council member Matt Lockhart in representing Ward 3. All right, let's talk a little bit about our moderator now. This evening, we're glad to have Jean Garrison. She's a professor in the School of Politics, Public Affairs, and International Studies at UW, and the director of the Wallop Civic Engagement Program. Hold up. Her research areas include American foreign policy, U.S.-China relations, energy security, and civic engagement. Jean has been a league member for quite some time, and we appreciate her moderating skills. So take it away, Jean. Oh, you know, I'm sorry. One last thing, and I'm going to do this visually here. Please turn your phones off during the forum for everyone's courtesy here. Real easy. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here and to serve as your moderator tonight. Can everybody hear me? Yep. Okay. My job is simply to make this forum run smoothly and to make sure that you both hear the questions as posed, and I will rephrase some of them for the sake of maybe moving through them more quickly. I've already got several. Thank you very much. If you have more questions, please just raise your hand, and a league member will come and get them. I'd like to start by asking each of our candidates for City Council to introduce yourselves with your name, and we know which office you're seeking, but we don't know which ward. Just your name and which ward, please. And I'd like to start with Mr. Henderson.
Thank you very much. Appreciate this opportunity to visit with all of you and the League of Women Voters for doing that for us, for information. I am Eric Henderson in Ward 1, candidate for Ward 1.
Thank you all for joining us this evening. My name is Nicholas Jesse. I'm running as a candidate for City Council Ward 1.
Ditto. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Brandon Newman, Ward 2, and I'm the current city councilor.
Sam Buckwalter, Ward number 3.
Good evening. Tammy Hooper, Ward 3.
Erin O'Doherty, currently on councilor on Ward 3, running again.
Brett Ralston, candidate for Ward 3.
Okay. So as a matter of course, you are, just so everybody knows, that our candidates are not allowed to do an introductory statement or closing remarks. I will be rotating the order of questions. I'll try to make sure everybody's first once and last at least once. And we will enforce time. So please do keep an eye on the timekeeper so that we can get through as many questions as possible. I want to note that, encourage you all to look at 411, because that's where actually I've already seen that 2 of the questions that have been posed to me, they're actually there, which is a little bit about what are the people's priorities and why are they running. So I'm not going to pose those tonight, even though they're great starter questions, because we have so many already. So I'm going to start with a question focusing on affordable housing.
90 seconds. Moderator?
Yes? What?
90 seconds.
90 seconds, yes. Is affordable housing a major, minor, or non-issue in Laramie? Assuming it is an issue, what would you propose to do to address this problem? If you need me to restate a question, please feel free to do so. And I'd like to start with Nicholas Jesse. Mr. Jesse, 90 seconds.
Thank you. Right out the gate. So affordable housing to me, having grown up here in the city of Laramie, Wyoming.
Speak directly into the mic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So having grown up here in Laramie, Wyoming, I do believe that affordable housing is an issue. I'm a former renter. I just bought my house 2 years ago, this month actually. It was a difficult process. I feel like there wasn't a lot of inventory when we looked. And as a young professional, it was tough, honestly. The market was tough. The market has always been tough from what I've heard and also seen. I think as far as it being an issue in my platform specifically, I want to look at expanding mixed-use zoning in spaces, looking at infill in the city. I think there's a lot of areas where there is just vacant land. How do we develop that sustainably and affordably? I think what we're seeing on the west side is a good start. I think what we're also seeing as far as the development with the old slate is also a really good start. I think that was a really good community effort with a lot of different stakeholders at the table looking to solve that issue. So,
we're going to go down the line.
On City Council now, and our current city councilors, I think we've done a fantastic job of looking at building codes, looking at infrastructure, updating our building codes, and meeting with those stakeholders that were part of or use those building codes. So yeah, housing is a major problem here in Laramie and in Albany County, to be honest. My daughters both graduated from here and then moved away. They don't live here anymore, and part of that was housing. I know there are a few people up here who rent, at least I think so. I'm one of them. Buying a house here is challenging, right? And I think the second part of that question is what would I do to help housing? Continue what we're doing already, working on the infrastructure. A lot of people are like, oh, you can put up houses. Well, infrastructure has to come first, right? And so we have to make sure that we're doing that smartly and using the best resources that we have. So yes, housing is a problem, but I think we need to focus on the infrastructure that will help that growth first.
Mr. Buckwalter.
Hello all. I do believe the affordability of housing is a major problem here. It took me a deployment to Syria in order to afford a home. And so my big theory of government I want you guys to leave with tonight is that government shouldn't solve issues, all issues for citizens. It should safely enable citizens to solve problems. And so with this problem, I think there's a lot of city code still restricting building accessibility for all parts of the affordability problem, between renovating houses, between building new houses, and putting in the infrastructure, like Brandon said. And so I believe that with further review with Brandon here, it's very important to remove code that restricts easy building in a safe manner.
Ms. Hooper.
Thank you. I think that affordable housing is an issue in Laramie. I've already met with Fred at the Land Trust. I think that's a really good start, what is happening. I think that there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. I think it needs to be refined. Part of the problem, besides looking at building codes, it's expensive no matter, housing across the nation is a problem. Affordable housing, I prefer to call it more attainable housing, because to me, having worked in other sectors of government, to me affordable housing means things like Section 8 housing or government funded. And I think what you want to do is have people have skin in the game, like the Land Trust is trying to do, so that they want to take care of a property, that they have the ownership that comes and the feeling of ownership with it. I think there's a lot of work left to do. I think that involving the community partners that they have already is a great start. And it's just going to be a moving vehicle for the next, we can't kick the can down the road anymore. We have to start doing something. Thank you.
Ms. Doherty.
We've been chipping away at this issue on City Council, and like Brandon Newman said, I think it's a major issue, and part of the reason is it's really hard to start a development because of the cost of infrastructure. It is so expensive. So to ask any developer, you got this land, you want to come in and build a bunch of houses, well then. And by the way, you have to have the water and the sewer and the stormwater all set up. Well, that's a really big investment. So we've seen, like with the city, the cost of just one pipeline, how the cost has gone up so much because of inflation. So I agree that the Land Trust is a good way to do it. I want young people to be able to get their foot in the door so that they can build equity in a home. Those of us that were able to get a home when they were cheaper we have we have an advantage. I guess that's all. Thanks.
Mr. Ralston.
Yeah, I do think that affordable housing is a major issue in Laramie, and I have a lot of friends, I'm 29, I have a lot of friends who would like to make Laramie their home, and they struggle finding a place to live and to purchase a place. And I think a lot of good ideas have been brought up about the working with the land trust to help homes become a place where people can build equity and get their foot in the door. I've also kind of been on this kick thinking about accessory dwelling units and figuring out how we can get the community to participate in also helping us fix this problem. I'm really interested in local participation, and I think that getting these tools like accessory dwelling units and the process for how we go about doing that as members of the community, getting that into the hands of people and helping people figure out how to kind of help solve the housing crisis that we have going on here altogether. So,
Mr.
Thank you. Undoubtedly, we need more housing choices. The key to this, to me, is smart planning. I don't want to see us go forward with high-density housing as we've done recently in infill areas and in new undeveloped areas of town without proper infrastructure being in place beforehand. To do so threatens flooding and additional concerns of a safety nature, and safety is my #1 concern when it comes to serving city council. Affordable housing should not come at the expense of that flooding neighborhood, overwhelming streets, or ignoring resident concerns. I believe we can do it all, and we need to do exactly that. Thank you.
Okay. The next question, we'll start with Mr. Newman, and then go down the line and come back around. Poverty in Laramie is highest in the state. What will you do to encourage businesses?
I think first off, 90 seconds to answer these questions, I thought was a lot of time when the commissioners were doing it, but now that I'm doing it, not so much. So go to my website, brandonnewman.net, and I will answer all these questions in more detail. I think the biggest thing with bringing businesses into Laramie would be the infrastructure that I was talking about. The minute that we can bring infrastructure into Laramie, which means I can bring housing into Laramie, which means businesses will come here, right? And it's all tied. And a lot of people, when we talk about housing, don't realize that, right? We need the infrastructure first. When we do that, businesses come, right? And then I think working with some of our nonprofits and community partners downtown would be a good example. We have apartments downtown that are empty that we should be seeing if we can get people into, and getting those rented would help free up some of our other rentals that could become houses, which means we could get some businesses here.
Brandon Newman really put it out well about how interconnected all these questions are. Oh, sorry. Brandon made a good point of how interconnected these problems are, where if you're solving the affordability problem for housing, you're also solving the economy problem for new businesses to come in. Because with new businesses, obviously you have a greater tax base in Laramie, and if you could somehow make it more encourageable for businesses to be inside of Laramie as opposed to being out in the county, that could instantly solve our affordability problem for housing and raise everyone's minimum wage up rather quickly. And so I think, going back to code again, there are a lot of codes that hampers the ability for businesses to grow. Instead, businesses have to stick with what they have, mostly with the amenities that they have, whether it's electricity or water that they have access to, or the buildings that they have indoor access to for all their equipment. I work at Tungsten Parts, Wyoming, and tungsten is a rare earth metal that is going by the wayside for availability currently. And so the demand is super high, and my company is lucky enough to have a lot of demand for it. But we are restricted right now for our capabilities and how quickly they can grow because of this very issue. And so I'd be very invested to solve it. Thank you.
Again, what they said as far as infrastructure, I think in order to appeal to businesses, we have to have the infrastructure in place so that they can come in and they want to put a building in. And we also have to look at the uniform code. What's required from that is it just an aesthetics issue, or is it something else that we can work with a business that wants to come in, and we can perhaps give a variance on the code, or an existing business that wants to expand. So I think there's a combination of factors that have to happen. We have to look at the infrastructure that we can offer, and we also have to look at what kind of businesses do we want to attract for our community. Part of this is, it comes down to what do we want our community to be, and what do we want our community to look like, and not in 60 days or a year. What do we want our community to look like in 5 years? So I think we have to think about those businesses that we want to try to attract and see what we can do to try to help them. I think working with the Chamber and Economic Development, I think they're really working hard. I know that I talked with Brad Inze last week. I sat down with him, and they're working hard to try to bring businesses in, as well as trying to get developers interested in building new housing developments, because it's a capital issue. If you don't have the capital, you can't develop. Thank you.
So I think one of the reasons for the high poverty in Laramie is low wages. So the only way to increase wages is to try to attract businesses that pay a better wage. And a lot of the businesses in town that do that were homegrown, like some of the consulting businesses. So I really like the idea of helping the businesses that are here, allowing them to grow. Because I'm not looking to bring in a whole bunch of people that are just coming here for, like, oh, you're going to give me a deal, and then they go to some other community in 5 or 10 years. So I like the idea that the Laramie Business Alliance is working with trying to increase manufacturing, and it should be right-sized for Laramie. I also have no interest in bringing data centers that would just use resources without employing people. And as far as code, I think we can relax a little about code, but I mean, that's there for safety. And when we send our firefighters out, I don't want to have extra things that could hurt them. Thank you.
Yeah, so fixing poverty is a very difficult issue, I think we all know, and obviously economic development is really important. And so getting higher wages for people to be able to live in Laramie would be great. And I think that we have a good opportunity to work with entities like Main Street Alliance and the Laramie Chamber of Business Alliance, and I think also as well, capturing might not be the right word, but getting skill from the university. They have a lot of students who are getting trained in things that could be turned into maybe a business idea. So I think maybe partnering with community partners already that are in Laramie to help streamline pipelines for creating businesses in Laramie, using those skills, getting the wages increased are all great options for helping fight poverty in Laramie. And also, too, nonprofits do a lot of good work in the community for helping lift people up, and we don't want that all to be put on their shoulders, but we're definitely in it as a team, and I think supporting nonprofits as well, it could be a very useful tool for helping in the short term.
Mr. Henderson.
When it comes to what we do, I think everybody wants growth. The question for me is how we grow, and to me, I like manufacturing jobs. I like jobs with technology, but it's frightening to know that every day in our world, companies like Google are changing the fabric and the landscape of jobs, period. So we, in my opinion, need to work more closely with the University of Wyoming. We need to work more closely in predicting the jobs of tomorrow so that we can house those people with their interests. Do high-density solutions answer that question? I don't believe that they entirely do. I do believe that we need variety, and surveys that have been done by the City of Laramie include that support for that position. it's really important that we evaluate our endeavors on facts, not assumptions, and it's really important that we do that promptly and inclusively with all citizens well in advance of the third reading. Thanks.
Jesse?
In my job, I'm a manager of career services here at the University of Wyoming. We're hearing a lot from young professionals that there are low wages in Laramie, there are no long-term career tracks for them in Laramie. My dad actually had to move to Rollins, and he's, really far in his career. He was working at Sigma here in town. It was a pharmaceutical tech company. They ended up relocating to Austin because there were more houses there that folks could afford and that their professional base could actually buy. So I think one of the things I really want to focus on is the nonprofits that are filling the gaps that government can't, right? So that's one piece. Laramie Main Street is one of those nonprofits, and they have been really dedicated to our downtown corridor. They support businesses who need support when they first come here. They're kind of a liaison to the city, right, as a nonprofit. And I think what they're doing, the work they're doing is valuable in creating business development. The last piece is we have two pretty healthy economic pipelines in our backyard, the University of Wyoming and Wyotech. And now I just found out tonight that they're working together to bolster further education for Wyotech students and help them stay here longer. So how do we tap into that student population and support them in their future endeavors in staying in Laramie?
Mr. Buckwalter, this question will start with you. Two-parter. How will less dollars in the county affect the city budget? Where am I?
It should be
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah, okay. How will less dollars in the county affect the city budget? And are there any existing programs that you would cut in order to balance the budget?
Glad you're first, buddy.
Begin.
All right, so for the first question, part one was how can less dollars affect? Yep.
How will less dollars in the county affect the city budget? And are there any existing programs that you would cut in order to balance the city budget?
So I know that there's a major 50% property tax cut trying to be passed right now, and I assume this question is related to that. And with that, if the government as the state right now is trying to cut taxes, I don't want to pretty much play an Uno reverse card and pass more taxes. And I firmly believe that our local government can survive well with less tax base. Our city council's already currently proving it with figures thrown out at a recent city council meeting that they have gone under budget for some of their projects currently, which is something to be very proud of because most governments can't do that. And so going into programs to cut, I will definitely give you a list of what I will start with last. And so I think the priorities of programs to keep will start with programs that immediately help out people themselves, such as the Laramie's Maternal Child Services. They have helped out my family. And services like that help families get back on their feet, continue going, and then push them towards success, not programs that like enable you to live off of them, but programs that just get back onto your feet are amazing for people to have. And I think those are the ones that should be cut last. Superfluous ones that, there we go.
Cooper?
You want to repeat that, please?
How will less dollars in the county affect the city budget? And are there any existing programs that you would cut in order to balance the budget?
Because of who we are as Albany County, the only difference I think is the fact where you live if you live within the city limits or out. I mean, Laramie is Albany County and Albany County is Laramie, and we also include Rock River in there. So if the county has to cut their budget, it will affect the people in the city. There'll be roads, condition of roads and bridges. You know, we travel to see our friends. Maybe, you know, some people live in the county, out in the, if you're not a voter for the city council, I don't know, but there will be impacts. For me, it's going to be, I think government's role first will be safety and security of the citizens, so fire protection. I think we have to look at what is going to make everybody safe first. Fire protection, police protection, emergency services, good roads, and then, of course, water and everything else. And the reality is, even if the 50% doesn't, if it fails, Laramie will always have to have difficult decisions on budgets. And so you have to look at needs versus wants. And I think the needs of the community, again, the safety and well-being, what government needs to provide for. And then from there, we have to look at prioritizing. And it's always going to be a tough decision. Everybody wants to sell their program, and it's a tough decision. But and I don't have all the answers, but I want to learn too. Thank you.
Fortunately for those of us on city council now, we didn't, or most of us, we didn't have to go through the big painful cut of employees from a few years back. So it's a very lean machine, but but personnel, that's a big cost. So if the county has to cut personnel, then it's going to affect the city. The city doesn't count on that money as much as the county does. So, public safety, that's where most of the money goes. So, what do you get rid of? Do you just don't repair roads? So people seem to want their roads to work. So, we'd have to start losing staff, which would be unfortunate.
Yeah, so I also took this this question thinking about the possible 50% decrease in property taxes that is being proposed on the ballot in November. And I do know that we have a very prudent city staff who has accounted for this loss in property tax to be about $625,000. Yeah, that's what I said, $625,000 per year due to this. And so it sucks that we'll be losing that money, but it's really nice that we know what that number is. And I think something like really creative and capital investment projects that have high return on investments would be a possible solution to something like that. And when it comes to affecting the city budget, I mean, I know the SPET is a county thing, so the 6-penny tax is a county tax. And so, I think about when we do get that money and we can to build capital projects, we can use that in creative ways to kind of help get return on investments from that.
Our biggest challenge is to continue providing the services that are expected in our community, but to do that with less money. Local and city and county governments are facing pending reductions in revenues all across the state of Wyoming. And to me, it's essential that we maintain public safety and we look after our infrastructure first and foremost. We carefully review each and every expenditure for efficiency and value, and we continue growing our economy to broaden the tax base rather than relying on higher burdens for existing residents. We need to be transparent with the public. This is the piece that I think that gets overlooked the most often. We need to be very mindful of getting the feedback of people all along the process, early and often. That's my pledge.
So I recently looked at the fiscal year 27 recommendation and was not excited about the $625,000. Obviously, that's a huge deficit for a city to incur. I think for me, what I noticed in that budget recommendation was that the city was actually being proactive utilizing their staff. I think, for me, in my platform specifically, my last goal is to cut services, to cut personnel. They're the ones that make our beautiful city run safely, efficiently, effectively. I know sometimes personnel being cut is an issue that we have to face. I think before we get to that point, we can get creative with the city staff. The financial director, I cannot remember her name, but I watched her present and was just in awe of all of the things that she was able to relay to the public in a public meeting. I understood it. I'm not a finance guy, so I think that tells you a lot about the staff that we have on the city staff. And then the other thing too is I would probably look at working intergovernmentally. I think the county, the city, and even the state government can come together to figure out how to account for this kind of shortfall.
Mr. Newman.
Less money in a budget, it sounds scary, but city staff's already started to know what we should cut and what we need to cut. If you look at our current budget, they already cut 10% from it. And the good part about that is they actually used reserves to help fund some projects that we wanted to get done before this happened, right? And it's Director Wade, by the way. Yeah. If you go to a council meeting, Director Wade is talking, you will learn something, I promise. I think one thing that we haven't talked about yet, though, we've talked about the property cut, but we haven't talked about the fifth penny either, right? Because it's on the budget as well, and that needs to pass. If that doesn't, please tell me which firefighter and police officer you would like me to fire. After that, tell me what other city staff that you want me to fire, because we're gonna have to, and that's gonna be a council decision. To know, like, hey, does our new city manager need to go, so on and so forth. But I have faith in our staff that we won't have to do that, and they will help us through. The second part of that question was, what would I cut? Nothing. To be honest, I don't think we would have to. We would have to get strategic with our budget, but I don't think of anything that we would have to cut to get past that.
Our next question will start with Ms. Hooper. How would you describe the relationship between the city and the county and the city and UW? What would you do to improve these?
I think that in any relationship, there's always room to communicate better and work better. I don't know that I can speak intimately to the relationship between the city and the university or between the city and the county. I think the city and I think that part of what I wanted to do, my goal is to try to work with better collaboration so that we can bring UW back to the table or to the table again to talk about water or traffic or parking, and the same with the county. I think, again, I think the city and the county, I'd like to think they work pretty well together. I go into the county a lot, and I don't have a problem. I think that they both do a great job. I would like to just see better collaboration and try to work on that with UW, the hospital, the school board, YO Tech, so that we can bring everybody to the table, because we will have, discussions about parking and budgets and making our dollars try to stretch as far as we can. So that's what I try to do, is just bring everybody back to the table and see if we can, have a family dinner.
So the university is kind of like the big brother or something that we don't have much control over, and mostly we're told that they're following rules because they choose to, not because they have to, because it's a different entity. So we have to work well with them, and I think one approach is that we're like, hey, we don't want to fight. This is a problem. I thought 15th Street was going to be the hill that I was willing to die on. Like, no, I just want to keep 15th Street open. But the university is a big factor in the city, so we just have to get along. And also, all of our constituents, like Ms. Hooper was saying, are part of the county. So the county, the city and the county have to work together. I think we have pretty good cooperation, and in particular law enforcement. They've done a good job of working together, reducing some costs for training. And so I was really happy that we worked together, that they worked together on mental health So approaching when a citizen is having a mental health crisis, now we have more officers and deputies that are trained to handle those kinds of situations. So that's one example where I know that we've worked together. And yeah, I also like the idea of working more with the hospital and the school district.
Can't cut your tongue.
From what I've seen, the city and the county seem to work decent together. And well, I haven't been to too many county commissioner meetings, or joint meetings between the city and the county, and so I can't speak too much to that relationship. I have heard that maybe there's some tension sometimes with the city and the university, and maybe they are like a big brother that is pushing around, but not, they provide a lot to the city of Laramie, and I think it's really important to recognize that and recognize the skill and the education that they bring to the community. So I think really fostering that relationship, especially I think a new president just came in, to maybe work on some parking around the university, to partner with development and things like that would be a really good opportunity to build that relationship with them, recognizing that they do bring a lot to Laramie, and the city can only benefit by working with them, I think. So, yeah.
Mr. Henderson.
I've enjoyed Wyoming since 1969, Laramie since 1987. And in all of that time, I know very well that Laramie succeeds best when institutions work together. Many of the institutions in our community, they have the same goals. The city, the University of Wyoming, Albany County, local schools, businesses, nonprofit organizations, they all share many of the same goals: economic opportunity, quality of life, public safety, and strong infrastructure. I believe in regular communication. I believe in partnership, solving problems together, rather than working in separate silos. And it's really critical to a community to collaborate often, and that saves taxpayer dollars while producing better results for everybody. Thanks.
I think that having grown up here, watching how the university has developed over almost 30 years, I'm 32, it's been interesting to watch how the community has changed in that time. I can speak more to the city and university relationship than I can maybe the county and city, but I think one thing that I really value right now is that we're ripe for opportunity for rebuilding those relationships, especially with the University of Wyoming. As Brett had mentioned, a new president is coming in, and he is from Wyoming, so this is also very valuable to us as a city. Reminding ourselves that the city of Laramie can't exist without the University of Wyoming, just like the University of Wyoming can't exist without the city of Laramie. I think one thing that we can do is, as Eric had mentioned, is not isolating ourselves and working across, using intergovernmental relations to rebuild and bolster those relationships, especially as we're witnessing some budget shortfalls, things like that. So just keeping that in mind.
I love this question a lot, actually. 4 years ago it was asked this, and my answer was probably pretty much the same. Supposedly, the county and the city have this really scary relationship together. I didn't see that, to be honest. Do we agree on everything? No. I'll tell you, I don't agree everything with my wife either. Does that mean we don't have a good relationship? I don't think so. And so, with the city and the university, could that relationship be better? Absolutely. Like everybody said up here, we have a new president coming in. But I'll tell you, that relationship is already 100 times better than it was when I first got on council. And that's because of the mayor and vice mayor. We made it a plan as one of our goals on council to make that relationship better. And those two took it in their hands to start meeting with the president, meeting with the staff. Not only that, we would get updates from the university to help better that relationship. So currently, I think it's a lot better than what it has been. I don't see the scary monster that everybody said is there. And as long as we continue to work together, this county will be better.
fortunately enough, Laramie City and Albany County have the same goals of just serving its constituents. And we're not enemies, nor should we be. But I do believe that Laramie is more likely to be selfish than the county would be. We are more likely to be the bad guys because the Laramie doesn't have to deal with the county the same way the county has to deal with us. So I think it's very important to be extremely transparent with the county on all of our happenings because Laramie being the hub city for all of the county, they always have to come to here for everything government related, and we're the only Walmart. And for concerning UW, UW has very similar goals, but unlike us, they are more for-profit than us. I know they're not a for-profit school, I believe, but they're more properly in the business of making money than any government should be. Because you can have a career out of UW. That's the reason I'm saying that. But UW also, I think, can have the same people in power longer. And so you have relationships you need to build and transfer over from the current standing government here and continue those relationships, which is very important to have, I think. And so those are all my thoughts on that. Thank you.
Moderator, we'd like to change the time. And I'd like to change to 60 seconds too. Okay, 60 seconds? 60 seconds. So the next 4 questions, Rayne, you have 60 seconds to answer these. We'll start this round with Mrs. Sheridan. The federal government and through the DOT cut 37% of their funding of UW's bus transportation for the public. What can the city do to support transportation for the 30% of people who do not have a driver's license?
I would like us to, as a city, contribute more to the UW transit system. They have a good program. We need the public to know that it's available to the public, but I think it would make sense for us to help to contribute to that. I don't know where we get the money from, but I would ask our finance director, how do we do that? But rather than us reinvent the wheel, I think it would be good to just to help UW more and maybe the Epson Center.
Okay, Mr. Ralston.
Yeah, so I have a friend who's a very avid bicyclist, and I think that something that could alleviate some of the pressure from the loss of these funds would just be putting in some infrastructure potentially for, actual good bike lanes. And also, again, too, I've said this for a while, I think the university's bus system is good, and I think it would be cool if it could be expanded on. So I know that they are losing some funding, but if there's any way that we could help support that, that would be good. Again, increasing bike infrastructure and incentivizing people to bike and safely get to places around town without needing a car, I think is also a great opportunity.
Okay, Mr. Henderson.
With technology, I would like to see an expansion of rideshare programs. I would like to see innovation partner with technology where you actually have in the palm of your hand people who are traveling from point A to point B. Who might you connect with, and what's maybe you have a social score that is that rates the risk, the safety. Who knows them? Who's in common with your network of friends and neighbors? Who knows who? And you might check that out. I like an idea of ride shares. I also believe that there's much brilliance in this community and brainstorming sessions where we have the opportunity to collect ideas, aggregate amidst all of us can be most advantageous. Thank you.
I support public transit. I think that we could actually bolster and expand our public transit here in Laramie. One of the stops that's on my mind is the Laramie Regional Airport. I'm kind of surprised after thinking about it a little bit that we don't have a stop there with 2 flights a day. That also can bolster some of the economic pipeline pieces to maybe generate more revenue within the city if we offer a public transit line for folks who are simply here on business or simply here on for school, education, things like that, coming and going, because if they have, more money to spend without spending it on ride shares or a rental car, they can spend it in the city, right? Not much more, but a little bit more. The other thing, too, is I would like to echo what Brett had said about cycling infrastructure. I would like to expand on that and provide cycling code education and also a bike light program for the city so we can encourage folks to ride safely at night as well.
I think I'm just going to pass this question on to Director Wade. Oh, she's not here. Sorry. But that's where that would start, right? Is we would have to talk to our finance director and find out if there are extra funds. Now, the good thing about it is our transportation study, we've already kind of mapped out some steps that we could be taking when it comes to the bus system at UW and how we can help them and how they can help us in that partnership. But it goes back to that partnership, right? Which goes back to the property taxes, which goes back to the fifth penny. It's funny, all these questions have been intertwined, but I think looking at some of our nonprofits to help fill the gap if we can look at federal grants to help with some of that, I think is what we should be doing, which is what our city staff is already doing. Thank you.
I believe that bikes are a major part for solving the UW transportation problem, particularly because they're college students and they're typically in a good, strong age for being a college student. And I know this is Wyoming, but Wyomingites are great at having the audacity to live in such a barren wasteland for most of the year. I currently ride a bike to work every day, starting at the top of 9th and Buford all the way over to West Laramie. And I can tell you that the only expressway this town really has is the Greenbelt. And it's not meant for that. It's supposed to be a nature walk. And so I have a lot of big ideas for improving the bike trails to make proper expressways for bikes as a legitimate mode of travel to work. Because currently, you're either trying to keep up with cars or walking as slow as pedestrians. Thank you.
Ms. Hoover.
I take classes, so I ride the bus at UW, and sometimes it depends on the weather. We were fortunate. We had, I think, the mildest winter I've ever seen that I can recall since living in Laramie. So people were able to ride their bikes. But I'll tell you, when the weather changed, the buses got full. People weren't riding their bikes. They weren't riding electric scooters. They weren't riding their e-bikes. They were on the buses, and so they would park and they would ride the buses. I think what Brandon had talked about, doing some collaborative partnerships and perhaps talking to some of these businesses. I don't know if Walmart helps subsidize the bus route. The bus goes out there. Perhaps they can help subsidize a stop out there. And maybe with, the Downtown Alliance, maybe a bus stop down there that they could help to subsidize, that part of the route if the bus goes that way. But I love bikes, but I'm also a realist. We'll have a bad winter again, I'm sure of it. And, and they're great. I ride my bike too, but, and I walk.
Mr. Ralston, this next question starts with you. Are you in favor of building a parking structure to ease downtown parking problems? And the second part of that is, if it's related to bicycle and micromobility infrastructure, what infrastructure would you put in place to help make the use of bikes around there be more accessible?
Still 60 seconds.
Still 60 seconds.
Just right off the bat for me to ask the question, I'm not in favor of building a parking lot in downtown to help ease the parking. I do think a focus on public transit and bike infrastructure and getting ways to get people safely downtown is a better solution at the moment off the top of my head. Again, I haven't thought too much about a big parking complex. And I think some bike infrastructure that I would be a proponent for would be actual physical, barriers, not just paint. Paint is not an infrastructure, is something that I've heard. So some sort of delineation that actually protects bikers, as well as also maybe getting them some sort of bike highway or something is a term that I've heard from somebody that is kind of the cars are on Grand and then bikes have another way to get downtown that is safe. So some infrastructure for helping make bikes safely get downtown.
Mr. Henderson.
First, I fall back to my time in the University of Wyoming residence halls. As a student government voted representative, we found businesses, commercial entities that would build a structure and they would operate it until they recouped their money plus an additional profit piece. I'd like to see a parking structure. I believe that that is a central possibility for solutions, and I don't believe that it would have to burden the taxpayer in order to do so. And with respect to the infrastructure on biking and cycling and other modes, I love the idea of the east-west corridors being developed. That's being done in City Council already, and I fully support that. There are channels and ways to do that, and it's dynamic. I think the Union Pacific Railroad can be relied on more heavily in support of that, and other entities as well. Thank you.
As far as parking structures and biking infrastructure accessibility goes, I do agree that more protected bike lanes across town would be beneficial. I ride my bike regularly, and it was a mild winter, so that was nice to be able to do that all winter long. I think a greenbelt expansion, one of the things I noticed is there's I think it's the interstate overpass, and there's just this big long section that people already use to walk. So how do we connect the West Laramie to downtown and the west side? That's one piece. And then I would like to take a poll on poll the public on parking structure specifically, primarily because I think we need to really find out how many people are going to actually use a parking structure and walk from the parking location to the business. I know a lot of people in town like parking right in front of the business they want to go to, so how do we get the public on board with a parking infrastructure? I'd like to entertain it, but I'd like to find out from the public if it would be utilized.
Parking garages are hard. Even if somebody came in and built one and recouped their money afterwards, it's still really expensive for the upkeep. And where's that money come from? We already have been talking about budget cuts. So I would say, unless somebody wants to write the city of Laramie a check for about $50 million, I would say no. Any takers? No? As far as bike lanes, I think we could have better bike lanes. I do like the idea of maybe something more than paint. And then the Connect West Laramie is the portion that you were talking about. And we've already kind of started that too. And I think that will help the Greenbelt build out. It will help connect some bike trails from West Laramie to Laramie Central, I guess as it's been called. And so I would like to look at some of the infrastructure and maybe some ideas on maybe those barriers that we could place in there and the funding that could come from those.
On parking lots, everyone in the county hub needs to come here if they want to shop anywhere downtown, so they have to be driving in. We also have a tourist economy, so people have to be driving in to come to downtown. So I think there is a great use for some sort of parking solution. Maybe not parking garage just for the expense, but parking lot, like the one currently on the northern side of downtown, is extremely useful, even for my own family. Now, for bikes, I don't think we can retrofit barriers too well inside the city, just for practicality of integrating that into what we already have. But the express lanes are extremely important in neighborhoods that aren't already built up with 100-year-old houses thus far. And I think there is a potential for better efficiency inside the city of Laramie to assist bikes in taking left-hand turns on busy streets.
Regarding a parking structure, I look at how long it took the University of Wyoming, who had wanted a parking structure since I went to school, and I won't tell you how long ago, that was from my first degree, how long it took them to settle on finally getting a multi-layer parking structure. So I think that there's a possibility of trying to find some more parking spaces, but I don't know that a parking structure is actually feasible from a monetary standpoint and then a long-term maintenance standpoint. And then with regard to the bike lanes, I will tell you, I think that part of what I want to advocate for too is education. I can't believe the number of people that they turn their kids loose on bicycles, and the kids, nobody knows. I'm seeing people shaking their heads right now like, yes, yes. I mean, I think we can improve the bike lanes. I don't know what we have to, but I also think that we need to help improve the education of what's allowed in the bike lanes and what's allowed on the sidewalks. Thank you.
Is it already?
Yeah, I'm opposed to a parking garage. I think the cost was something like $6,000 or $7,000 per space, and that doesn't count the maintenance over time. So I feel like I go downtown a lot, and I can always find a parking space, except for maybe during the farmer's market, Jubilee days, and then I just park a little farther away. But I think that we've tried to squeeze in every parking space we can downtown, and it's a matter of the geometry. Like, unless we could do some Harry Potter thing and just make some spaces get bigger, I think that we're limited there. And I'm really proud that we've increased bike lanes in Laramie. We have several streets that have share rows so that you can bike or ride. I mean, you could bike or drive, and so I think that's the way to go, and to narrow the streets and then make the bike lanes wider.
Thank you.
Next question will go to you, Mr. Henderson. Oh.
Yeah, that's what
Well,
Yeah, so.
see if we have let's explain. Let's just.
Want to share?
We might need to. We'll give it
Hear me now.
okay. You guys can hear me. Can the live stream hear me?
it's going through there.
Okay. All right, data centers. Would you favor appointment of a task force to develop a policy, and how would you involve the county? Mr. Henderson.
Yes, I would absolutely support a task force. I believe when it comes to a major economic development, it deserves a fair and fact-based evaluation. And I already spoke about cooperation. I believe that the entire community should weigh in as part of that task force. The county probably is going to be the source of the land where such a facility would go. So certainly they would be involved. And when it comes to my ultimate approach is simple: transparency. I want decisions to be made with the public understanding both the benefits and the costs. And if the project strengthens Laramie financially, we can roll with it and support it, but I want development to pay for its way.
Thank you. Mr. Jesse.
On data centers, I definitely would support a task force. I think I was at the meeting when Brett Glass brought up a task force between the city and the county, and I thought that was a brilliant idea. I think that the thing that city councilors need to be doing is communicating what the public is telling them as far as what they want and what they don't want to the county, because it's going to, to Eric's point, the county is going to probably be the one that would provide the land. I think this also, correlates with the aquifer protection. This was one of the driest winters I've ever seen living in Laramie for as long as I have, and concerned about the aquifer protection and the use of our public resources for something that might not bring too many high-paying jobs. It's also a national issue, and we're seeing across the country that city councils are actually overwhelmingly being not overrun, but they're being.
Okay.
Data centers, fun. So, if you go to any city council meeting all over the nation, that's what they're talking about, right? We got overran and it wasn't even on our agenda. I'll tell you, I think it's August 11th, city council is having a work session on data centers. I know the mayor reached out to county commissioners to see if they would show up, even informal, to see if they would be part of that meeting. As far as a task center, I think we should have one. There's a bunch of other things that we have to talk about when it comes to data centers, right? We have to talk about energy. We have to talk about water. We have to talk about what type of data center. There are data centers that don't use water. And so coming up with what we want as Albany County and Laramie is really important.
It's been told to me that the policy is already written for data centers to have a way to be here in Laramie. And so, along with many other policies here, I'd love to change it. But this one, I'd actually like to be more restrictive because data centers don't need us. They're a huge brother that can be their own entity. They can supply their own workers, but they can take. Now, for it to be advantageous for a data center to be here in Laramie, they have to improve our tax base amazingly. They'd have to make amenities cheaper, such as water and electricity, which would be a miracle. And it would have to have no impact on quality of life, which is also going to be a miracle for the amount of industrial noise that you get and the land that it would take up and the eyesore it could be. Now, I also don't believe data centers could really be fitting in Laramie unless we annex area out in the county to be a part of Laramie as a data center. And so I think the threat of that is low, but we should be proactive in writing policies to make it favorable to us in case maybe we do have the chance for a data center.
I would absolutely support a task force because I don't know enough about data centers. I've heard a lot of things. A lot of it's conflicting, and I'm sure everybody else has. As Brandon said, it's a topic across the nation. I know there's different models for data centers, and I think we need to be in the tent rather than outside. We need to be talking, and I think that this goes to, if we have public meetings, I think the city needs to make sure that we can reach out to people many ways, postcards or whatever, come to meetings so that you can go out of that meeting with a basket full of information that you can go home and digest. You can see what the data center's about. I don't know enough about them, but I do know that if they do come in, we want to be the ones to set the requirements. And that includes water storage, what kind of power they are going to use, the land use, the light pollution, the noise pollution. And if we have the seat at the table, we get the say, not them.
I've tried to learn about city planning and those kind of rules, and one option that might be, I'd be in favor of a task force. And we'd also have to include the county because the city is not, we're not going to have a big data center in the city of Laramie. There, not only would I work against it personally, but we just don't have the space either. So it's good that we're going to at least address it with the county to be proactive in case somebody tries to come here. There's nothing in the works, but I think that making it a conditional use in our industrial zoning where you'd have to meet all of the requirements so that you're not affecting the neighbors is a step we might take.
A sentiment that's echoing in my head right now is don't negotiate with the bad guys on their terms. So I think something that's really important is to make sure that, first of all, yeah, I do agree with the task force, so we can figure out those terms that we are negotiating with them. What's the size of this thing? Where is it going? Can we protect the aquifer? We really want to make sure nothing's going to be damaging our water supply. We were earlier talking about economic development and how much we need it, and there is a possibility that a data center could bring economic development, but we need to make sure that it's bringing it fairly to the members of our communities. And there's things too, like data centers sometimes will pay, and if we could have them pay for infrastructure, like increasing water access to certain areas, increasing electricity grid capacity and things like that. So there's a lot of boons that could be obtained by working appropriately with the developer of a data center, but we shouldn't take any bad deals.
The next question will come to Mr. Jesse first. Youth drain is a problem in Wyoming. Most agree that this is a problem. How or why do you think you could be successful holding the youth in Laramie? Mr. Jesse.
As we've talked about earlier, with economic development, there is a brain drain happening across the state. It's been happening. I was actually a product of that. I left Laramie for 5 years. I've lived in Colorado Springs, lived up in Denver, and then decided actually to come home and better my community in the ways that I could. As far as supporting it, I think, or not supporting the brain drain, but figuring out how to solve it, I think really leveraging, as I mentioned before, the economic pipelines that we have in our backyard. So the University of Wyoming, WyoTech, bolstering those relationships, finding out what sectors of the private industry are existing elsewhere that we might be able to start building here. And I think I can do that and hopefully come up with some solutions in the future through my current job as a career services manager and also building that relationship with the university.
When you get elected to council, you get to be on some boards and commissions that meet, and my favorite one is youth council. Those guys have really good ideas, and I think to answer the question bluntly is just I would steal those ideas and implement them. And we've done that, right? Free day at the rec center, we gave out 250 some passes for mental health. And so I think that would be one thing that we need to do. The other thing that I want to do with Youth Council is actually expand it to where we can have some LCCCs, some WyoTech students, and maybe some UW students on it to help us get those ideas, right? Like I said, my daughters both moved away. When I graduated from here, I moved away. And we need to figure out how to stop that.
Laramie used to be a frontier town back in the 1800s, right? And so I believe we need to make Laramie a frontier of opportunity for young people now. I think that we're missing this, like, the audacity of the cowboy aura of Wyoming. I think that's starting to go by the wayside here in favor of larger city ideals, in my personal opinion. So I think we need to lead in onto massive opportunity where young people can build a life, American dream it up. And with that, going back to one of the original questions, there are a lot of codes that restrict economic growth in this town. And I believe that loosening those up will enable a lot of hard-working jobs for young kids to get after.
There is a reality that our number one export in Wyoming is our youth. They leave. And some of that is just a natural thing. Kids want to leave. They leave their homes. They go out into the world, and then they want to come back. So what we want is when they want to come back, we want them to be able to have a place, a job for when they come back. So again, it comes down to economic development, finding those jobs, what do we want our community to look like so that those jobs are out there for those, our kids, somebody else's kids from Wyoming who graduated that has that professional degree, or they have a technical college degree where they can start a business or come into a business and have a good paying job and find a home. So it's all intertwined. But I don't have all the answers, but I think that it starts with housing and economic development.
I agree that housing is really important, that it needs to be affordable. But I also think that we're lucky in Laramie because it's a welcoming community. We passed I wasn't on council yet, but council passed the non-discrimination ordinance. We want people in Laramie. We want a diverse community, I think, and an artistic community, and to encourage our recreation opportunities. So many people want to live in Laramie because it's such a great place to live. It's a vibrant culture, and so we want to keep that. And we also have to really keep an eye on our hospital and make sure we don't lose them, because maternal health in this state, I mean, I can't imagine being a pregnant person in Rawlins and then having to come all the way to Laramie to have a child. I think that we have to really protect our our hospital, so that we have that, the health care.
Yeah, I think we've talked a lot about some issues that are kind of leading to this brain drain. We don't have the housing. We don't have the wages. People are struggling to get food and to find a place to live. And so we talked about some of the solutions for those. But I think another thing, too, that is actually pretty exciting. I mean, I want to say there's maybe 4 candidates running that are around young people, essentially. I'm 29, and I think something about building a culture where young people are respected and can say, hey, I can be valued in this community, and I want to be here, and I want to make Laramie a better place. And I think that's something that we could really work on, is building that culture that really respects young people and allows them to get their roots here.
platform that I stand on most is public participation. In city council decisions, when you don't have all the answers, rely on your community. We are at the crossroads of brilliance with vocation, education, and WyoTech, with Laramie County Community College as an asset, as well as the University of Wyoming. We're right in the crosshairs of brilliant people. It's time that we reach out and we establish and increase the number of mechanisms that give public the opportunity to give input. I've spent years encouraging community conversations. We need to continue that and explode it. I've learned that people don't expect government to agree with them all the time. They do expect to be heard, and that's going to be critical to moving forward with consensus.
Mr. Newman, you're going to get the final question. I just want to say thank you to everybody. I'm sorry that I haven't gotten to it. You remember your questions and know that our candidates will be here. You can come up and ask your question to them after this. And this question is, Wyoming is ostensibly a home rule state, and yet courts and the legislature frequently work to undermine local rule. How far would you be willing to go to pursue municipal self-determination?
Well, as far as state statute would let me go, is probably the easiest answer. The good thing about that is I have a really good working relationship with both sides of the aisle up there. I think every city councilor does on our current council. So would I push for it? Probably not, because that's not my job. My job currently would be to help make decisions for the city. We have a school board that would help us do that. We would have legislators over the hill help us do that. And if I had to go testify, that's what I would do. But if the question is asking would I help write something, I probably would not, because I would want to focus my time on something else that would make more impact here in Laramie.
Can you say the question one more time for me, please?
Wyoming is ostensibly a home rule state, yet the courts and the legislature frequently work to undermine local rule. How far would you be willing to go to pursue municipal self-determination?
Okay. This position I'm running for is honestly a stepping stone, because I have great ambitions to start getting up to those levels of responsibility, to start changing things across the state, and maybe even nation, wherever God leads me. But I think far too often a big brother, whether it's a state or federal entity, have stepped upon local municipalities such as ours. And I don't know how far I could easily go for civil disobedience for something like this, but I would be more than willing to fight for a very long time against any sort of big brother municipal court stamping on what we have determined as our own self-determination as a community here as what is right.
I have full faith in when I vote for my legislators. And if there's an issue that the courts are trying to override something that Laramie's doing, that's, I believe Laramie employs a city attorney, and then there's also a budget for that. I would have to see what this, when you talk about home rule, and is it something that's so egregious that we're going to have to rewrite an entire statute or the municipal code? I don't know. But I also am there to represent the people of Ward 3. So a lot of time, it's not up to me as well. It's what my constituents would want as well, and I have to listen to them as well as my conscience.
I feel pretty self-righteous when we were trying to protect our water, but the fact is lawsuits are very expensive, and we could only get so far if the city passes an ordinance and then the legislature just overrides it. So I mean, we can only go so far in the court, and then we just have to say, okay, well, we need to figure out another solution.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that something that we could do to protect against this is kind of make some rules that allow the people of Laramie to actually participate in making the changes they want to see. If we're just going to write a municipal code into effect and it's just going to get overturned, I think that it's important to get people educated on the types of structures that we can use in the city, and they can directly participate in the thing that they want to see changed. I'm really big on local participation, wanting to build community, and I think kind of, I don't know if doubling down on that home rule idea is something, but essentially saying, hey, the people have the power, and they can use that whether or not essentially the state overrides some sort of city thing that we want. So.
I abide by the laws. I believe in the Constitution. I believe that the rules of the city of Laramie apply to me, and I will do my utmost to advocate for every citizen. I've spent years listening to people across this community through my work in local media, business, community engagement. I've spoken with residents from all walks of life. If consensus isn't possible locally and the state wants more power, the federal government want more power, I will resist as much as I have the support of the citizens of Laramie. And to do otherwise, I'm not a lawbreaker with respect to those kind of things. Civil disobedience, not exactly my thing. However, I am an advocate that spoke on Senate File 116 in the Judiciary and the Select Water Committee. I would do so again and advocate for our community accordingly.
Sorry. So I like what Brandon said. I'm someone who I think would push until sorry, excuse me. Let me collect. I think it's important to remember that it's important to have a spine in some of these issues. I think too often we see leaders that cave, and I would be one of those leaders, I think, that would push, but not, in a way that would demean a state statute. Obviously, I don't have that kind of power, and I don't want that kind of power. I think it's important to engage with community, engage with our legislators, and engage with county officials if we feel like we're being overstepped or not listened to by our legislators at the state. I know that happens quite frequently. I think it's also important to trust that process with community engagement and listen to our constituents to relay those messages as public officials to our other public officials, and also remind, to Brett's point, remind our public. Thanks.
We have a couple of pieces of business, including some announcements by the league. But first, would you please help us thank our candidates?
I encourage you, if your question did not get asked, to please come up and ask it and to continue to participate in these forums. I would like to turn it over to Matthew, who has a couple of announcements of what's coming up with more forums.
How close do I gotta be? Testing, hello? Okay. Just a few points of business here. I want to thank the library and especially Rachel for doing our tech support tonight. Great job. She's the library director and doing tech support, which is normally not required. I want to remind people that we have this wonderful website called vote411.org, curated by the League of Women Voters, and it's basically the electronic form of our regular voter guide. And so candidates have been invited to answer questions on Vote 411, and once they do, it just automatically goes right into the system. So if you want to learn about a candidate or find out if they've answered anything yet, just look them up on Vote 411. And anything found on Vote 411 will eventually be part of our regular voter guide published by the Boomerang, which is coming out on July 22nd. I want to remind people that next week's forum is going to be the Albany County Clerk, the Treasurer, Coroner, and the Clerk of District Court. So all county offices. It will be a big grab bag of a forum next week. And finally, I want to invite everybody to come on up and converse with their candidates of interest as we put things away here. Thank you. Thanks for coming, everyone.
so we need the water.
Yeah, oh man. I was afraid we'd get flooding. It was coming down so hard last